Collecting Cars, the global online marketplace devoted to cars, bikes and automobilia. A safe, smart and simple auction experience for everyone. List for free, sell for free, hassle free. Follow us on Instagram at Collecting Cars and also collectingcars.com. Hello and welcome to another Collecting Cars podcast. Sorry we've been away for a while, but this does signal the beginning of a run of podcasts that will be coming in the next few months. Sorry, I've been a bit busy. And we only like to do them when we've got real quality, which doesn't actually make this one make sense because it's just me and Edward. I do apologise.
This is quality.
It is quality. So myself and Edward Lovett are sitting in the Collecting Cars office because, well, it's Halloween, isn't it? And we thought it'd be a great chance to share some of our users' horror stories with you. And then after that, well, we could have another 7-hour podcast when Edward discusses his horror story of a life with cars. All right? Are you willing to do that or not?
I can divulge a few.
Yeah. Let's just say, if you look at the significant cars in the UK and the numbers that are on the road, subtract 2 for most of them because Edward's written a couple of them off.
Thank you.
Okay, so what we've got here in front of me is a list of stories submitted by your good selves. And I've not read these yet, so I'm going to read them blind. So if there's any swear words, I'll try and brush over them. But I love the idea of reading these blind because it reminds me of Terry Wogan doing Janet and John stories. And if you don't know what that is, go onto YouTube and type in Terry Wogan, Janet and John, because it's brilliant. Okay, I'll start with my first Collecting Cars horror story. As a sub-25-year-old salesman, I took a 6-month-old GT86 home for the weekend. At this point, my only experience of rear-wheel drive was driving double-cab pickups. I did a few small first-gear road-end slides throughout the weekend. Then on Monday morning, I gave it full throttle launch out of the last T-junction before work, nicely sideways, as I thought to myself, oh, this is embarrassing, Chris Harris does this all the time. Kept the throttle fully open, clutch in, second gear, clutch out, backwards through the hedge. A rear quarter and door needed replacing. Because it was pearl white, the whole car pretty much needed a respray to colour match. Then, out of the blue, a customer walked in and wanted a GT86 and would consider a Cat D one or anything. He was promptly sat down in an office until a price was agreed. So whoever that was, nicely in and out, I have to say. So Edward, we're talking about vehicles that are either on SOR or belong to a car dealership that then get damaged. Would you have any stories like that?
No, not on one on SOR, no, but there's a few like that. I have a lot of respect for that guy. And,
I think
I feel the pain as well.
Well, I'll interject there because one of the great fears all of us has is the idea of the Ferris Bueller style. I gave my car to someone to either park it or service it, and I don't know what happened to it. And the only time it's ever happened to me, which wasn't a horror story, but it was an awkward moment, was I had an SL63 AMG, which was the normally aspirated one. I can't remember the number, the R something. It was a 2009 car. It was a brilliant car, and I gave it to Mercedes Bristol to be serviced. And it needed to be on a Monday morning, but I was away working, so I said, "Can I drop it off on Friday?" But I wasn't leaving for work until the Sunday, and I went into Clifton Village to have a pint one evening, and I think it was the summer, and there was my SL63 with the roof down, parked up outside a pub in Clifton. And as I was walking towards it, a bloke just confidently walked back into it, got in it, started it up, and I thought, I'm not going to say anything, let's see how he does. He got in it, looked around, smiled at a few people of the opposite sex, and then just screamed up the road in it. And I just thought, you chopsy bastard. So I went and did my job, came back on the Tuesday or the Wednesday, and said to the DP, so what's that all about? And he just went, well, sometimes people will take a car into Bristol. I said, well, no, they won't. It's not on, really.
They're road testing it.
Maybe they were. But it was a bit weird. It was a bit like going out for a drink and seeing your girlfriend out with another bloke. It was a bit odd. Anyhow.
Google Lamborghini Aventador crash Monaco.
That was yours, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was, yeah. I wasn't driving it.
Okay, right. Here we go. So I'm driving back to the boarding house in my first car for the essential piano lesson before my grade 6 exam later in the day. Are you driving at boarding school? Okay. At this point, it's worth noting that I'm a cocky teenager who has been watching too much of the Fast and Furious franchise. I'm in my first car, a distastefully modified Peugeot 205. with flip blue metallic paint, a bike exhaust, and neons. I struggled to keep the hordes of Swedish supermodels at bay in 2011. With over 60 horsepower on tap from the 1.1 litre engine, I joined a dual carriageway at snail's pace and forced the chap behind me to brake hard. He gives me the finger and I simply smile and give him the thumbs up. Unfortunately, we quickly reach a red light. He stops his car, gets out, and I can see him walking over in my rearview mirror. I go to wind my driver window down, but the mechanism fails. This burly brute leans through my window and punches me in the face with considerable force. Luckily, some witnesses alert the authorities and the chap is later given a police warning. Struggled to read Chopin's work with a black eye, but still managed to secure my grade 6. That is wonderful, and it's also beautifully written. Beautifully written. Whoever that was, can you send me a direct message on Instagram, because you need to do some writing, because that's a fantastic piece of writing. I love that. That's really, really good. Actually, yeah, random acts of violence on the road.
Well, you've had this recently.
I've had, yeah, someone offered me out outside of school because I let my dog out of a door and he was driving too fast, and I said, "You're driving too fast," and hit my dog, and he replied by saying he's going to punch me in the face. But that's the way it is. I think the best one that I can remember that I was involved in, which is it's embarrassing, is one of those instances when you forget how unthreatening the vehicle you're in is, and if you're angry, no matter how big you are inside the vehicle, you're in something silly. So I was someone cut me up or did something not very pleasant or that I objected to 20-something years ago on the A329 near Bracknell. I remember on the Bracknell GP, the cut through between the M3 and the M4. And this bloke was in a big, fast saloon car. And I won't say what I was in at this point. So he's cut me up and I'm very much aggrieved. And I made the mistake of being quite close behind him because he really has been a complete weapon. And I think I'm going to sit behind him. I'm going to intimidate him, which of course is pathetic and no one should do it, but that's what one does in a stupid situation, and I wouldn't do that now, hasten to add. Anyhow, what I forgot was that I was in a, let's say, a very small car. So anyhow, we pulled up at some lights, and I was there bristling, and he got out of the car, and he came back behind me with tears running down his face, and he said, "Look, mate, I know you think that you're intimidating me, but have you seen what you're in?" I was in a Daihatsu Avanzato Dangang ZZ or something. It was basically a K car, a Japanese K car, 660cc, that is about half as wide as a car. And he just couldn't take me seriously. And
because he was crying with laughter.
He was laughing at me. He just said, "I know you're angry." And he almost admitted I had a right to be angry, but he said, "Have you seen what you're in?" So we often forget the vehicle we're in just doesn't present any kind of danger. Like if you were in a murdered out Range Rover, maybe, but I was in a K car. I could have been Jeff Capes in there, but it made no difference. I just looked like a pillock. Here we go. Here's another one. I once had to pick up a black Lamborghini Gallardo Spider with straight pipes and gold wheels for the rental company I worked for at the time. I had to bring the car back to New York City from Long Island. I made it to the toll booth before the Midtown Tunnel when I realised I had no toll pass and no cash. That's a nightmare. I've had that happen. So I was the guy with the top down in a super loud Lamborghini who had held up an entire line of traffic so the cops could write me a ticket for no toll. Even the cops were like, "What the hell, man?" Do you know what? That sense of utter doom that we've all had when you're at the péage and you've left your card at the previous service station, that's hellish. In terms of, what's your worst France péage autoroute story about being caught short, or being normally your right-hand drive and the toll's on the left and you drop the money down? And
normally the worry is the 500 metres coming towards the toll is, did any police spot me between the last toll and this toll, and are waiting for me? Actually, I've been pretty lucky with that. I've got some good French stories. I'm not sure I can tell many of them here.
In 2000, I went to a wedding in the south of France in a Ferrari 456. It was the UK press car. Now, they had a strict rule in those days that if you borrowed a Ferrari press car, you could only do 500 miles in it. And obviously, south of France and back is more. So I begged and borrowed and said, "Look, can I take this car down there if I do a story and we get a story in Autocar magazine?" And I was lucky enough to be lent the car. I loved it. I still want one now. It's the reason I want a 456M GT manual, because I just think they're great cars. And I remember that trip. So I drove down. There was myself, 2 other people, and I was a road tester on Autocar. I was skinned. People will not believe that, but I was skinned. And my credit card had a £700 limit and was always just about to burst. We were in a brand new Ferrari 456 at a service station just south of Aix-en-Provence. And I ran out of money. I had no means. None of us in the car had any means of putting fuel in this car. And it just looked so obviously like we'd stolen it. So I'd filled it up with petrol, Then my card bounced. The other two people had no means of paying for it either. In those days, you could hand a tax disc in the UK, couldn't you? But in France, you couldn't. And they called the gendarme. They just said, you've stolen that car, haven't you? So we were stuck there for hours just trying to explain how it was a press car. I was a journalist, but no, it didn't stack up. And of course, one forgets that when you're a young journalist, sometimes you look like you've got all the cash, but you can't afford to actually put fuel in the cars.
You still look like that now.
I know.
Are you, if on a right-hand drive car at a toll, now you're getting older, do you get out of the car?
I always prepare myself to drive up to the toll slowly. So the language of my vehicle says, don't get behind me because I'm going to be slow. So I don't feel under pressure. I get out, I walk round, and I put it in manually, and I get out again. Leaning across is you pull something.
Was there an age change? I used to do the lean across, and now I realise that it hurts my back.
Early 20s. The other thing is, remember those things you had as a kid, the little mechanical hands with a claw?
Yeah.
I still have one of those in the 512 because
you can do it.
I can get the card. But I can't pay for it with it. But I always I use that to get the card out.
I was always so competitive. I'm approaching the toll. There's another car with me. Right, how do I get in the toll, get the card in, pay before he can go through as well?
I know. I grew out of that when I was about 22, but you're still doing that now.
I'm still trying, yeah.
Right, here we go. This story didn't happen to me. It happened to my dad in France around 1990 when he was in his mid-20s. So please forgive his inevitable romanticised exaggerations. My dad grew up loving field archery and going to competitions as a team with friends, and this is going to be interesting, and got his licence at 18 for the sole reason of getting to competitions on his own. He took it upon himself to fix up his dad's already old and worn-out Citroën Type H van. My granddad warned him, "This thing is old, unreliable, and I won't travel halfway across the country to pick you up whenever it inevitably breaks down. You'll be on your own with nothing but the clothes on your back." My granddad has never been tender but always incredibly wise. Years later, my dad was driving up a mountain pass between the French and Italian Alps and on his way to a competition near Milan in the now much older, more worn down and still very much French-engineered Type H van. Halfway up, his engine temperature starts to get close to the red zone, but he isn't worried about it yet. The road is steep and the steed is old. Suddenly the temperature increases sharply. The engine, positioned just below the cabin, starts to heat up the floor under my dad's feet. Then came the steam, which quickly billows out the front. My dad pulls over, he lets the engine cool down for half an hour in the alpine air and takes a look at the engine bay. Nothing seems to be broken. Indeed, nothing was broken, as he soon realised the accessory belt had snapped clean off. It being the early 90s and the middle of the mountains, my dad didn't have anyone to call, and certainly not his father, whose wisdom was only a match for my dad's resourcefulness. This is beautifully written, I love this. Then he remembered, nothing but the clothes on your back. He took it in his stride, pulled his trousers and pants down, but only pulled his trousers back up. He ripped the waistband from his boxers, which consequently became his new accessory belt. The fix held for the rest of the trip, and on that day, my dad gave a new definition to going commando in competitive bow hunting. That is legendary. Again, whoever wrote that, can you please send me a note on Instagram because you need to be doing some more writing. That's lovely. Going commando. There's a good one. Fixes on the hoof.
Well, I was going to ask, what cars do you leave home in thinking, it will be remarkable if I finish this journey?
For me, I hate to say it was always Alfa Romeos that we worked with and TVRs. TVRs were just unbelievable as a journalist. They just never worked. They would always break down. I can remember...
Did you look forward to collecting them and starting the journey, however?
But by the end, no, because you just knew something was going to go wrong. It's the only car I've ever been locked in. I couldn't get out. I mean, everything failed on a Cerberus. I was sitting in a service station near Teddington, and I was just at the pump for ages, and the guy came out and just said, "Can you move on, please? Because you've been here 20 minutes." And I was shouting, "I'm locked in." And he was just getting angrier and angrier, saying, "You've got to get out." Well, I can't.
Is there any modern cars that would still worry you? Brand new cars?
No.
Range Rover?
I do see some Land Rover product by the side of the road that does seem to. But your Defender's been good, hasn't it?
That's fine. But I've seen brand new Range Rovers stopped on the A4 coming into London with poor ladies coming out of them with them stopped in the middle of the road.
And I've seen quite a few Discoveries as well like that. What car? But if you had to flip it on its head, what car do you think is unstoppable? I've got a Land Cruiser V8 Amazon, 140,000 miles. But I didn't buy on collecting cars because there wasn't one on collecting cars. And I think even at that age, it feels like nothing would stop it.
Yeah, Land Cruiser, they're pretty good, aren't they? They seem to go on forever. But Gelderwagen. Galanderwagen.
Galanderwagen.
Sorry.
Yeah, but yours is green and chavvy. Okay, here we go.
It was.
That was a lovely one. Here we go.
Well done, Max, for writing that.
Yeah. This is a very, very long one. It simply reads, I was given a Rover Metro as a gift, and ends. Do you know what? A Rover Metro wasn't a bad thing, because a Rover Metro was probably K-Series engine car, and therefore wasn't too bad. It was the one with the A-Series that was supposed to replace the Mini that was just all kinds of wrong.
It might have not been a new one. It might have been a rusty one.
Could have, but they were good. With the K-Series, they were fun little cars. But the A-Series one, I know some people still love them, but I couldn't get on with those.
When I used to get in trouble, when I was a boy, and I had a driving license, but I would normally be punished by giving a very bad car that didn't work properly. So once I was given a E30 BMW 318, which was definitely one of those cars that was going to die. And there was a staff party one evening, and I had to go and drop someone off in Bath, I think. And I just knew it's about 38 degrees outside, no aircon in this thing, and I just knew this was not going to get me home. 5 hours later, I eventually turned out. So there are some cars, even if they're a gift, you just prefer not to have them.
No, I've been given cars in the past for people that have emigrated, cheap sort of runners, station cars, and they've cost me thousands because I've forgotten to tax them or change the registration document. I remember standing in the magistrate's court at Swansea Magistrate Court, explaining why a mate gave it to me and I forgot to tax it. And I'm standing there thinking, why am I doing this? Right, here we go. After just making it to a 4-day festival in Cornwall with my Suzuki carry van, my mate and I ensued to party as you would. The time to leave came around too quickly and we were still in the heady days. The old reliable carry got us off the field after sheltering us for the last night of torrential rain. We got to the T-junction to leave the grounds with a huge queue behind us and the stewards everywhere. We were convinced that we needed to go right. We did not need to go right, so made an adjustment before the briefest of checks to go left. At this point, a long wheelbase transit slapped me like a fly into a ditch. The stewards took one look at our terrified and somewhat festival-damaged faces inside and encouraged us to leave as quickly as possible before the arrival of the police, who were less than a mile away. That's a conundrum. The stewards and other random people all helped rock the van back onto 4 wheels. We exchanged definitely legitimate insurance details and fled. Thank God the carry's first gear had absolutely no torque. Otherwise, I think I'd have had no legs. We didn't stop until we found a fry-up on the outskirts of Portsmouth and stressed chain smoke the whole way home. Might take it easy on the last night next time. That's beautiful as well. I'm enjoying these. Right, I'll tell you a horror story of mine. It's a horror story about a car. It's not actually about me in a car. So, and the person that told me this will probably be listening to this and might want to correct it, but this is my recollection of what he told me. He was working in, I think, the late 80s for Peugeot as, I suspect, some kind of regional warranty employee. So he was overseeing warranty claims and understanding, what needed doing. And I suppose doing that for a French car company in the late 80s was quite a busy job, because let's say they made some great cars dynamically, but the build quality wasn't brilliant. Now, many of you will know that the difference between a 1.6 and a 1.9 GTI Peugeot inside is that the leather bolsters on a 1.9 are leather or leatherette, and on a 1.6 they're cloth. So a 1.9 GTI was considered far more luxurious because it had this bit of cow where your thighs rubbed. Anyhow, there was a batch of cars that came into the UK that had funny leather, and they had a sort of rough texture to it. And Peugeot couldn't work out what it was in the UK. They thought, well, we need to do something about it. I think they battered a load of customers off until one customer worked out what was going on. There was hair growing out of the leather because it was so poorly cured and of such poor quality. It was still sprouting hair from the beast it had once been. But to confirm this, they had to leave the car out back for a bit to monitor it, to see if it grew or not. And I also heard someone else tell me about this, and there was some thought of shaving it and giving it back to the customer. That was another person who told me a similar story. He said, I said, I've heard that before. And they said, we were thinking about whether you should just give it a bic and a bit of aftershave balm and hope it stopped growing. But there you go. The idea of a Peugeot that grows a beard whilst you're driving it, that for me is a horror story.
Lovely.
Right, here we go. Oh, I like this one. I just saw the word girlfriend. By the way, yeah, we're reading these blind. So they are as much of a shock to me as they are to you. And also, I apologise if my reading isn't so good. I can't scan ahead. When I pulled up outside my girlfriend's house that day, I didn't expect to fall victim of the local spotted Facebook group. Oh, God, that scares me. It seems my parking that day fell a little short of the high usual standards. No matter, I was only nipping in, I thought. However, within a moment of my arrival, some busybody had taken a picture of my Audi TT, posting it on the spotted Facebook group with the caption, "Look at this for parking." The post quickly gained traction, much like the TT, which rattled me, particularly as I was alerted to this by my girlfriend herself, who appeared to enjoy the deep shame I was now feeling for parking like a moron. As I scrolled through the comments on the picture, I started to see people saying unkind things about me. Social media for you. That twat would have needed to book a taxi to the curb from there, being a particularly well-liked comment. Much great hilarity was being made of my shoddy parking. The comments were rolling in, and I began to type out a reply. So enraged was I in the mess I'd created. It was at this point that I saw a comment on the picture which really struck me down. Saw him get out of the car, young guy, shit haircut. Bet that car was paid for out of the bank of mummy and daddy. Oh, it's all coming up. Well, that really got to me, and it was partly true. I'd taken a loan from my dad to buy the car. But what was wrong with my haircut? It made it all feel very real. I was not only being watched, but now being cyber-bullied. I'd gone round to my girlfriend's for a cup of tea and wound up the laughingstock of the entire village. It was at this point I realised my only option was to delete my Facebook account and never speak again of this online ordeal. I've since taken great care whenever parking to get as close to the curb as possible, which has resulted in many a chipped alloy. Do you know what? I totally sympathise. We've all done that. The idea of being watched. I mean, as you can imagine, I get a few people that take photographs of me in cars, and my parking is not very good sometimes. I'd rather leave it 6 inches further out than I should do than risk a curb alloy.
I don't want a curb wheel. Who wants a curb wheel?
I hate curb wheels. Here we go. I took my W123 wagon to the car wash en route to a first date from Hinge. Where's Hinge?
James Sharp, is that you?
Where's Hinge?
Hinge is Hinge is a dating app.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Why
is Hinge spelled with an M? Unfortunately, the sunroof isn't quite as watertight as the previous owner had me believe, and I proceeded to be soaked for the next 5 minutes using my jumper to hide the few electric components. Despite a hasty trip to the restaurant bathroom, I can't help but think my date thought I'd wet myself with excitement, and I never saw her again. I love that. Yes, so taking cars on first dates and then misbehaving. I don't have any of those because sadly my romantic life isn't that exciting, but there must be people. We need some more stories sent in.
First date cars? First
date cars when it's gone badly wrong.
I had a Nissan Sunny 1.4 LX, so I think I generally disappointed before they'd even seen me.
I know.
Here he is.
I know someone. I know this is a.
Doesn't your father run car dealerships?
This is a family podcast, but I know a man who was in an early '80s 911 and was had found a quiet country spot with a lady who was equally keen to road test the vehicle with him, and they were getting down to business, and the vehicle began to roll quite significantly, at which point he had to admit to her that the handbrake cable had snapped, so he stopped with his trousers around his ankles and put a rock behind the back wheel so he could carry on. And he's listening to this and he'll know exactly who he is. Right. I picked up a Volvo 244 from Yorkshire. 5-hour road trip with the boys in my dad's 5 Series. Arrived, car looked great. Quick burger at a local and back on the road. As it starts raining, I reach for the wipers, which are not working. Cue my best mate George spending the next 7 hours, max speed 60 mph in 4th gear, leaning out the sunroof, using the squeegee to rhythmically clear the water from the windscreen so I could navigate the M40. Once safely home, George in the midst of hypothermia, the seller texts me, wipers only work if the key is 5 degrees clockwise of ignition. Great bloke. I like these. All right, here we go.
I like a car with a little quirk of it sort of something doesn't work properly, but you don't want to fix it because it sort of gives the car a bit of personality.
Well, that was to come back to TVR. That was one of Peter Wheeler's best ideas. The idea of not having buttons with any sort of denoted function in them, almost personalised to the owner. It was quite clever in terms of security. It meant that if you tried to steal a mid-90s TVR, you actually wouldn't have a Scooby-Doo what you were doing. I mean, it would be very difficult. You'd be able to turn the key, but the rest of it would be totally baffling. You wouldn't be able to turn the lights on or anything unless you knew that car.
Well, all classic cars, cars from the 30s, 40s, 50s, etc. None of the buttons said what they do. So most of them have little white little stickers above them telling you wipers, starter.
Well, so I quite often leave that 512 TR of mine, I leave it out on the street. And some people will say, well, do you not worry about it getting nicked? And I say to them, well, it's done so many miles anyway, it's worthless. And also, the idea of someone getting in it's got a dogleg gearbox, so they probably put it in second and stall it straight away. It won't, actually you can't get it into second until it's hot, so you probably start it in third. They wouldn't have a clue how to drive it. And if it was wet, they'd just be through the first hedge. It's absolutely lethal in the wet. Here we go. Right. I love a mule, not the animal, that's not dissimilar to a horse donkey, but the wedgie shoe, kind of tricky to walk in, but fashionable every few years. I'm never one to taking advice, especially about the appropriateness of footwear for driving. So when my boyfriend intimated that they were probably not the most suitable for driving my newly acquired Renault 4 TL umbrella gear shift, I'm liking this already. The fact I'd only just passed my test might have had a bearing on it. So when I said I was popping to the local grocery store in my lovely new mules, and he said, don't drive in those things, I dismissed the advice with a middle finger. Now the Renault was on the drive at an angle of 45 degrees to my boyfriend's very nice 944 Lux. So a very simple manoeuvre to reverse, straighten up the car and back out the drive, not in mules. In a flash, both came adrift. I had no idea which foot was where or where the mules had gone. I'm not even sure they were on my feet as the Renault lurched back and its little chrome bumper created an extra crease in the rear wing of the Porsche. How do you admit you should have taken the advice? You don't. You deny everything for as long as possible.
I learned to drive in a Renault 4.
Did you?
Yeah, umbrella gear shift. I almost crashed it trying to figure out how to get it from second into third. Quite a weird.
Well, I had one doing a Top Gear film, didn't I? That I loved to bits, and I did repatriate it, and people were expecting me to put it on the road, but sadly the shell was too badly damaged. So I have got the vehicle; it's here, but I can't register it on the road, so it's a field car now. But
you still have the Renault 4?
I've got the one from I bought it back from Nepal.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
But I can't register it. Because it's just too gone. It's knackered. Oh, we've been offered more stories. We've been offered more stories. Is it good? I'm all howling with that. Is this good? Yeah. Okay, right. So crashes on driveways. Yeah. And I'm not talking about stately home drivers. I'm talking about small farmyard driveways. So
dealer forecourts as well.
Oh yeah. So
same thing.
When I was very young, this is a Halloween horror story for me. I had a 205 XS, so I'd have been 18, 19, first reasonably quick car I'd ever owned. I just loved the thing. Gone up to my mate's house, and they had a driveway that you went up through a gate, and then you only went up a hill about 40 yards. There was a right turn, that was the bit of driveway in front of the house. Then you turned right again, effectively down a square, and there was another gate to leave. Both gates were always open, and I would drive up, park my car, see my mate, and then just drive back out again at the other gate. So I had my new car, drove in, parked up, and as I left, I thought I'm going to show off, do a wheel spin, and I absolutely screamed around the little right-hand corner. I went down and the gate was closed for the first time ever. And I just piled straight into a gate. So what it looked like from the outside was I drove flat out from 40 yards into a gate. I absolutely wrecked the front of the car and the gate. It was despicable.
So I always wanted to get driving pretty quickly. My sister had a Nissan Micra, and she went on holiday. And my parents very kindly let a few of my school friends come over, and I think they might have bought us some. What were the first sort of Alco pop drinks?
Mad Dog 2020
or something. I can't remember. They bought us some alcohol. It was very friendly.
You'd have been Smirnoff Ice. But
Smirnoff Ice.
Yeah.
They bought us something like that, and it was very very kind of them. So they went to the opening of a local golf club, and left me and the school guys there. And I guess we were 15 or 16 years old. By this stage, the Smirnoff Ice, I thought this is not good enough. So we went back to the back of the booze cupboard. If we went right to the back of the booze cupboard, they never touch that stuff. No one ever touches the stuff right to the back of the booze cupboard. So we did a few shots of that and decided to launch the Nissan Micra down the driveway. First tree, bang. There we go. Bring. local golf club, could I speak to Mr. Lovett, please? They came back, and my father can lift up a whole car whilst he's angry with his son. There we go. I was making mistakes before I even learnt to drive properly. There we go.
We all know women have a reputation for curbing wheels. I don't agree with that. A cliche, but like all cliches, it's probably based on fact. No, it's not. But we'll keep reading. A new set of rims for the BMW 330 Cabriolet in the early 2000s were about £1,000. I know this because that's what I had to pay to replace all 4 hexagonal-shaped wheels on my wife's car. They look fantastic, should last another couple of years at least. I hadn't banked on the intervention of the mother-in-law. Starting to sound a bit like Bernard Manning here, you are. Now, how kind to offer to babysit for a week, flying in from Ireland, no problem, you can use my car. What a generous wife. I wasn't convinced. I must have some sort of psychic powers. All 4 wheels demolished in a week. Not even slightly. There was barely any paint left on them. I still have this thing that I feel less guilty in myself if I have a massive crash in a car, which I don't tend to do, than if I curb a wheel. There's something about curbing a wheel that's just in my head is listed as the ultimate sin, because I always view it as the ultimate avoidable incident. If you just slowed down and taken time and not hurried, you wouldn't have curbed the wheel. It's inconceivable that you'd have curbed the wheel. Therefore, it's always an avoidable incident. Unless there's a curbstone that's fallen out, in which case I have some sympathy. But otherwise, you can avoid it.
I think I look at the cars around London.
What's the worst wheel you've ever curbed?
Ooh. I'm not sure. It's not. I don't curb wheels very often, but I do feel very sorry for the women in our lives, my mother, wife included, when they've curbed a wheel, because I don't. Their immediate thought is not, "Oh shit, I've curbed a wheel." It's, "What's he going to say?"
The worst wheel I've ever curbed was on an E39 M5. So we'd driven the car. Autocar. We'd road tested the car at the launch in Austria, and the village we took photos in, I remember, was called Rimsting, which I always thought was quite a painful sounding village in Austria. And we came back a couple of months later and we wanted to do a road test in Autocar magazine, and there were no cars in the UK. There weren't any right-hand drive cars, but Frank Sittner had a left-hand drive car that had been lent to him by BMW M that he was using as his personal car with FS1 on it, and Frank liked Autocar, so he lent us the car, and it had very early E39 M5s had a sort of a really lovely smoke finished alloy.
Beautiful, yeah.
It was really cool colour, but it was actually a very thick paint that could chip. So I had this car the night before we were supposed to film it. I went down to Bristol to show my mates, and I curbed the wheel. And there were no other wheels in the country for this thing, and I was so mortified. I spent the whole night thrashing around trying to paint this thing, trying to sand. I'd do anything I could. I felt worse than I have about the bereavement of most of my family about that wheel. I don't know why. I don't know. It just completely got to me. This helplessness. I didn't sleep. I thrashed around, and I remember saying to my boss, I think it was Sutcliffe at the time, I was mortified. And his reaction was just, "Yeah, it's just a wheel." I think once you've seen that someone's beaten themselves up enough, you don't want to lean in.
Yeah.
But if you think they're too relaxed about the damage they've caused, then you lean in, don't you? Maybe that's the way it works.
What about a carbon fibre wheel? I think they're for the waste, aren't they? If you curb
if you curb one of those, you have to throw it away, don't you? I
nice.
wouldn't want to curb a wheel on an SF90. They must be 5, 6.
They will be.
Right. So before we go, a couple of things. I want to ask. We've not done this for a while. What do you think of that new Countach that Lamborghini's done?
I haven't seen it in the flesh.
What do you think of the pics?
They look okay, and it's the sort of car I'd love to buy, but I just can't keep up with the value of these things.
No. What are they asking for it? Is it?
It must be $3 or $4 million or
is
something
it?
like that. It's something ludicrous. It's not an enhanced Aventador. It's a Cyan, isn't it? Is that what it is?
I think it is, but mostly Cyan, isn't it?
I just don't understand the value of these things.
The Lamborghini is an interesting brand.
Although one thing I would say is I'm totally in love with the LP400 now, an original one, and
wouldn't you?
Yeah,
they deserve to be worth all the money, don't they? What are they now? They're well
over $1 million quid, but I just think it's just beautiful.
Yeah, I agree. I saw Simon Kidston's got sort of purple coloured one.
He's got a purple one. I think it was 77 UFO on it as the registration number, and he found a year or so ago a car in a container in the UAE somewhere, and it had been smashed up and put in there 30 years ago, and they brought it back to Italy and have totally restored it in the most incredible blue paint with blue leather, and I think it's just been shipped off back to the UAE.
I think they're gorgeous cars. The Lamborghini interests me at the moment because I've just driven the Huracan STO. Most of their modern cars I don't really get, but I just loved it from the moment I got in it.
Two-wheel drive?
Two-wheel drive. It's got paddles, but actually, that engine wouldn't work with a manual gearbox because of the way it revs and the ratios. So I didn't miss the manual gearbox at all. Absolute yobbo. You can really slide it around in a way that the previous Performanti style things and the Balbonis, you just couldn't. They felt like four-wheel drive cars that had their drive shafts removed. The steering never quite... The speed of the steering never seemed to sync with your brain and the way the chassis works. I don't know how to explain that, but they were very snappy cars. But this one was just glorious. I mean, it looks like a cartoon. It looks absurd.
Yeah, which is what Lamborghini's all about.
Yeah, they should be. I as a brand, there's so much that they could do, but they always seem to be stopped short. And Ferrari's smashing it at the moment with so many different models, and we've still got, they're still flogging the Aventador.
Yeah.
I mean,
that must be it. Well, they've just launched the final version of that, haven't they?
Yeah.
But what else could they do? You say they could do so much.
Well, I just think the brand can support so much. I think Lamborghini as a name. I was watching Formula 1 with my youngest last weekend, or whenever the Turkey race was, and he loves Ferrari. He was saying, "I love Ferrari." Then he said, "Why don't Lamborghini do Formula 1? That name surely must be in Formula 1." He's right. It should be in Formula 1. It's synonymous with everything that Ferrari is doing as well. I think it operates at that same level of exoticism. I told him that Lamborghini did make Formula 1 engines for a while. They just weren't very good.
They're all going to fall into this trap of electrification and hybrids. And are they going to master it? Well, you've driven the Cyan. You thought that was pretty impressive.
Yeah, but the electricity in the Cyan is used to smooth out the gear shifts. That's pretty much it. It doesn't actually operate as a hybrid. It's just it's a way of smoothing a gearbox. Really, it gives you a sort of pulse of electricity between gear shifts. It's a lovely thing, but it's not going to save the planet.
No.
Might save your gearbox. The SF90 is a clever thing, and I gather it's becoming a bit more popular now. But the money,
they're expensive.
£500,000.
Yeah.
So, but what are they? Are they back from £500,000 now or not?
They will be, yeah. And there's plenty of them for sale.
Are there?
Yeah. It's a good looking car.
But there's no luggage space.
But this is a production Ferrari for £500,000. The game's moved on. A 430 when I was selling those new, they were 125 grand.
Oh no. So it's a different world. I don't know. I just think that these hybrid cars seem to just carry so much weight around. I'm not sure it fits with what a sports car should be. People either need to decide they're either going to make an ICE car that weighs so little it has a tiny carbon footprint. You could imagine if you could make a sports car that weighed 600 kilograms and actually did 80 miles to the gallon. That would be clever, and I think would resonate with people, and would be not guilt-free, but would carry with it a lot less guilt. Or do you just make electric only? Someone needs to make an electric only sports car. What's that thing called? The McGurk or the Maguire? I always forget the thing. That tiny little black bullet-shaped thing that was at Goodwood going up the hill that sounded like a vacuum cleaner. I saw that in the flesh. At a Top Gear
little
thing.
single-seater thing.
Yeah, it's been made near Bristol.
No, I met the guy. Let's talk about that.
That is an amazing vehicle.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about. That's the most forward-looking thing I've seen in years.
Yeah.
The moment I saw it, I thought, that's what we should be doing. Why are we're electrifying everything and trying to be efficient, and it weighs 1,800 kilograms.
Yeah.
That defeats the whole point. Weight is the ultimate marker of inefficiency in any vehicle. Can you hear a dog barking? Is that my dog?
No, I don't think it doesn't sound like your dog.
Electric cars, Tesla at the moment, I can't. Tesla sales in August was over 700 cars in the UK. I mean, they're just unstoppable at the moment, aren't they?
Because it seems that way.
Everyone seems to want one. What do you think of the Model Y?
This is the smaller hatchback
small
one.
X.
Yeah, I saw them out in Canada last week. I like the look of a Tesla. Yeah. I'm not sure.
Would you have one?
No, I don't think I would. The UK infrastructure for electric cars just doesn't work. We have a BMW i3 in London, which is perfect because you can fit 4 adults in it. We've got 3 kids, so they all fit in. That's the only electric car I need right now.
Yeah.
There's quite a few of the little Honda Honda E's driving around. They look brilliant. I don't need a full electric saloon car in the UK.
Well, I'm about to buy. I'll say it now. I'm about to buy my first hybrid. I'm not going to say what it is, but on a future podcast, I will come back and discuss my. Don't give it away, please. I will discuss my my hybrid experiences because I'm fascinated to know what it's like. But at the moment, it doesn't work for me. And I came from Bristol today. I don't do too many super long journeys of that type. But if I was in an electric car today, I would really struggle to get there and back without massive interruption to my journey.
Yeah.
But I'm going to try.
It was interesting coming back from Canada yesterday. We were on one highway and there were 8 lanes either side, and you could see, they are so far away from getting the world onto electric over there. And I think they've just stopped the effectively the MOT out there, so they're not that fussed about trying to get combustion engines off the road at the moment.
Well, if you've got a few million acres of shale oil, gas and stuff hidden underneath your the surface of your territory, then I can understand why you're not. I mean, I don't know. That's a broader argument. And China's non-appearance at this summit and its massive push to use as much coal over the next year because it's got an energy shortage coming up over the winter, it does make the hand-wringing of many people in Europe look a bit ridiculous. But the counter-argument is someone's got to be a leader. Some nations have got to put a stake in the ground and say we can't carry on like this. And I totally understand that. Yeah. But it's quite difficult to justify going all electric and doing everything for the right reasons if you look at what's going on in other countries.
Absolutely.
Particularly if, China is the largest polluter by such a long way. Shouldn't go into this too much in this podcast. But if it makes you think, well, why should we bother? But if that's the case, then everyone, there are no rules and no laws and everyone's doing the wrong thing for too long. But what's telling is, I think we're just at that tipping point where electric cars are going to start becoming real fun. People are going to make fast, amusing electric cars, and then I think our attitude will change towards them. If you go and drive a Tesla Roadster again now, they're an electric Elise effectively. Yeah, great fun car, but no one's made that car yet, have they? No one's made it.
It can't be that far off. Who's got the first one coming? That's affordable.
I think the Boxster, whatever you say affordable, I think the new Boxster will be electric,
fully electric.
Yeah. And I think that could be the one. That'll be so fast, so agile. You just know it's going to be good. That racing vehicle that they showed about a month ago as a concept. Any manufacturer that uses the word concept, that means we're going to make it. Yeah. So that's going to be the first step. Okay. Well, I think we've covered an awful lot of horror stories. Make sure you get the pumpkins out. I love a toffee apple as well. I always think toffee apple's a good Halloween thing. Trick or treat. If the kids come to your door, don't punch them. Give them some sweets. And make sure that you leave some kind of sinister lighting on in your house to scare your children. Edward,
thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure talking to you, and I promise you there are some podcasts coming up. Nailing the people of quality we want down has been tricky, but we've got some coming. Don't worry.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
If you have a rare, sporting or iconic vehicle to sell, then contact the Collecting Cars consignment team today and sell with the market leader. And if you're a watch enthusiast, then don't forget to check out the auctions on watchcollecting.com.